Keeping Up with the Joneses, they used to live next door. Now the Joneses are everywhere in the world. Like, you see places and items of luxury on your phone in the morning right after you wake up that most people would have never, ever seen their whole life. Yep. So the comparison is robbing us of joy for sure.
Amen.
And I think with a lot of these people that have built a lot of wealth that I've worked with, most of them don't care what other people think, which is awesome. I think that's so cool. Like, they're not rude. They're very compassionate usually also. They're usually also very generous. So they're generous, they're content. They are not spending money for other people to see. And that's something that as a young person is really hard.
Success in business means nothing
if you're losing in other areas of your life.
It's time to stop just building wealth
and start leading with conviction. I'm Jake Tracy.
I'm Sean Skyver, and this is the blueprint for the modern man, mastering real estate, scaling business,
and honoring God and family through courageous stewardship.
Let's get to work.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Courageous Stewards Podcast. Today is going to be a really awesome podcast. We have a good friend of mine here today that I have known since we were probably fourth grade, I think, when I came to a new school, which was not a new school for you. But we got Jason Demland here with us, and he's a financial advisor, been a good close friend for a long time, and has a lot of wisdom in the financial coaching space. And so we want to learn from him, hopefully, a lot today. So to start out, I just want to say thanks for coming and give you the floor to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from and what you're doing now.
Oh, well, thanks a lot. I'm honored and humbled to be here with you guys. It's pretty cool that you would invite me on here. I'm Jason Demland. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm an enrolled agent with the IRS. I'm a certified kingdom advisor, and that means I have alphabet soup after my name. I'm a CFP CKAEA.
Goodness.
You can forget that I said all of that because, it doesn't matter that much. But yeah, I'm Northwest Ohio, born and raised. I've been here all my life. I grew up on a dairy farm.
Boy.
Yeah. It's not a dairy farm anymore, but it means we were good at growing up with not having very much.
Yeah.
But did that. I went to school with you until you left.
I did. I went to a new school. For those that don't know, my junior and senior year, I transferred to a new school.
Didn't just drop out of school completely.
Which is funny because you actually live in Holgate, or lived, right?
Yeah. Well, still, yeah, that's where I grew up.
Holgate address.
Yeah, it was like 4 miles from Ayersville, where I went to school, but 10 miles from Holgate, but technically Holgate School District.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we open and rolled out of there, and then you're like, that seems great. Wherever Jason's not, that's where we should go.
So I ended up transferring back to Holgate, which I lived in Ayersville, so it was almost like an odd swap.
Yeah, it was a
there.
trade. The schools made a trade, and maybe some future draft picks were involved.
That's great.
But yeah, I'm a financial planner now, but I had no idea that I wanted to do that ever. I've always been jealous of people that knew what they wanted to do, like early on. I played basketball with a guy a couple years older than me that wanted to be a dentist. He wore a mouth guard before it was cool, and he's like, I'm going to be a dentist. And now he's a dentist. He's got a dental practice, and it's like 25 years later, and he's a dentist. And I was like, man, that's cool to know what you want to do. I went through all the things that I wanted to be. Everything that a kid had. I want to be a firefighter. I'm going to cure diabetes. That was a big phase for me, and be a doctor. And then I changed my mind, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything.
Why diabetes?
I'm going to write books. I have family.
Okay, I was going to ask if that was personal.
Yeah, family that had type 1 diabetes. So I went through all that stuff. And so after high school, I didn't go to college. I got decent grades in high school. I didn't try very hard. But I didn't go to college right away, which is a weird move for somebody like me. And in my family, my parents both graduated from The Ohio State University, and my sister eventually did too. But I didn't go to college because I was in rock bands. So I was going to be a musician. And that didn't work out. Mostly because I wasn't very good. Also wasn't trying very hard. So there's going to be a rhyming pattern to a lot of my career in the beginning. But then I did all kinds of jobs, just trying to figure out kind of what I want to do with life and what life. I didn't know what life was all about. Most of us don't in our late teens and early 20s. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up, after the band kind of fell apart, I went back to college. I was working at Sears, so it'll date me if my gray hair doesn't. And I really learned a lot about sales, and that was great. And I kept getting promoted there. And then I met my wife, and we got married. and I inherited from her about $110,000 of student loan debt. And I myself had accrued a little bit of debt being in a rock band. You finance things, amplifiers, pedals, Big Macs, so kind of started to get more serious about life when we were married, and we had this, what could have been a decent house at the time worth of student loan payments to make. And that's when I got a job at a bank, and then I really started to get into finance. But behind the scenes with all of this, I went back into farming. So I farmed with my dad. We started doing an alfalfa baleage business. And that is for dairy farms, we custom baled. We went out and we had some of our own fields because I grew up on a farm, not a lot of acres, but some. So we converted all of that to alfalfa, and we farmed other alfalfa, rented fields, and financed a really cool baler, rented a really crummy tractor. And my dad and I were doing this job, and it was going to be great until hail killed everything one year. And we had really no profit at all. And the wisest thing there was to sell everything to kind of break even. So that was a rough couple of years, kind of into nothing, while I was working at Sears. So it wasn't my full-time job, but it was supposed to be the thing that was going to be my future career. Well, that fell apart too. So now we're 0 for 2 on these great big ideas I've got. and I started working at the bank. But while I was driving in that really crummy tractor, it only got AM radio. It was a Case IH Magnum, real big, cool tractor from the 80s that we were driving in 2008. And it only got AM radio. So I listened to all the political shows, but I also listened to Dave Ramsey, the Pope of personal finance. And that really I was like, oh my goodness, I can get out of debt. I think we can do this. We have to actually run a process and actually do some things. So that's where my love for personal finance really came, very selfishly trying to get my wife and I on a good foundation, because I didn't know she was managing a coffee shop. And shout out to Big B Coffee. My wife was barista of the year for the whole company. She was maybe the greatest barista of all time. She was awesome.
We love you, Amanda.
But we were not making that much money, right? So we were making like $28,000 a year altogether, and we have $110,000 of student loans to pay off. That's I think once they all started up, it was like $1,000 a month in payments that we had to make.
That feels like an impossibility at that age.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even doing Dave Ramsey's baby steps, I was like, oh, okay, good. We do this, we'll be out of debt in 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I share some of that same story with the Dave Ramsey thing, and that's how we got started. And yeah, when you write down all of them and see it all together in one big pile, you're like, we're never paying this off.
We did a lot of stupid, dollar sign or zeros behind it. That's what he says, right? We did stupid with zeros behind it.
Yeah.
But Lord is gracious, and I got a job at a bank, and I got to start putting into practice some of the personal finance things, some of the coaching and doing that. Though it's a little bit at odds. The bank, they want you to. You sell debt at a bank. That's how you make money. Right. And credit cards was a good way to make money. So I had to kind of fight through that. And the best way out of there was working on the investment side. So I got securities licenses through the bank that I worked at and worked on their investment side a little, and then moved over there full time. And then from there, found another Dave Ramsey like-minded advisor, and we started another firm, an independent firm. And then from there, I started my own firm. So that's how I got here. Everybody's normal path to being a financial planner.
I heard farming, rock and roll star.
Well, star is being very generous.
You had some awesome hair back then, I have to say.
Yeah, thank you.
Long and flowy locks.
Yeah, it doesn't do that anymore. It doesn't. The grays are a lot wirier. Yeah, I did a bunch of other odd jobs too. I worked at a factory for a year, third shift, to save up to buy my amps and guitars. I didn't finance everything 100%. I was an electrician apprentice for a while too, and I did a lot of things.
That is interesting for sure.
Yeah, so let's dive into the financial side of things. Now you have actually gone back to school multiple times, gotten additional designations and qualifications beyond just the basic,
securities licenses.
Licensing, there you go. Basic licensing that you originally had gotten. So tell us about what your designations are, what they qualify you for, and kind of who your group of people are that you try to hone in on to advise financially.
Well, I've niched down. I've worked with all kinds of people, starting at the very beginning, doing some basic coaching, like how to get out of debt, how to save more. We did a lot of that. And then starting out saving, Roth IRAs. Let's open some Roth IRAs. Let's do basic investing. I sold mutual funds. I sold insurance. But as I realized more and more what I wanted to do, what I really liked helping people do was get on a strong foundation and be able to have fun with money. And the best way to have fun with money is to be able to give it away. And you can't give a lot of money away if you don't have it. But also if you're drowning, like if you're paying debt, if you don't know what you're living on or why you're spending the money that you're spending. So I really wanted to get into that. So that was kind of why I wanted to get a certified financial planner designation. It's kind of like in financial advice, it's kind of still the Wild West. The SEC governs it. FINRA looks out over people that sell financial products. But there's no like to be a lawyer, you need to pass the bar exam. And then you're admitted to the bar. To be a doctor, well, you have to pass those exams. You have to do all of that training. You have to do your residency, and then you can practice medicine. But in finance, it's like, who knows? If you're a financial advisor, you could just be selling insurance. You could just be doing financial coaching. You could just be selling mutual funds for a commission. You could be doing flat fee advice. You could be doing a mix of all of those things. So it's really wild. I wanted to become a certified financial planner because it's kind of the only bar that financial planning kind of has. It's independent of everything. But to do that, you have to have a bachelor's degree. And I dropped out I went back to college and dropped out several times in my journey. And I was like, well, I need to get my bachelor's degree. So I went back to school and got my bachelor's degree, business degree in finance with a focus on financial planning because they had that and it got all my prerequisites out for the CFP exam. And then I took the CFP exam and I passed it. It's very tough, but it's not impossible.
Did you pass it on the first try?
I did.
Nice.
Thank God I did. Yeah. And I was able at my job. It was great because I was able to study a lot for the exam at the job.
Were you in before they needed, because you had to have your bachelor's degree and then some experience even in finance, didn't you, before you could become a CFP?
Yeah. Thankfully I had.
You were in before then, or were you in during all that?
I was during that. I had to have the bachelor's degree, and I had already had the requisite experience from working at the bank.
Oh, that makes sense. You already had it. I was considering that years ago as an engineer, mechanical engineer, and I was looking at it because I love the coaching side.
Yeah.
I want to just help people with basic budgets, those kind of things. My heart's kind of been there for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And it was like, I went back and looked at it. I'm like, wait a minute. It said that 2 years of experience in finance of some sort. I'm like, I don't have that anywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't really have a good avenue that's going to allow me to kind of integrate and transition. But I went back and forth. I think sometimes like you love it and you're excellent at it, which is awesome. And I was concerned about something that I like to do as more of a hobby, becoming a career and then not loving it anymore. But
it was rewarding. It was tough. I know that the bachelor's degree requirement keeps a lot of otherwise qualified people out of it too. The experience you can get, like you just have to keep doing it. Like you can pass the exam and I have to watch myself because they really regulate this. And I just took my ethics continuing education on it. Anyway, you can't call yourself a certified financial planner professional until you have got the experience, but you're like a certificant. Like you pass the exam and then you work. Noah, who works with me, passed the CFP exam, which is tough. I had him; he was working with me and passed his exam, but he still doesn't quite have all the experience. And he worked for Fidelity for a little while, and now he's worked for me for a year. And he's still got I think in March he'll have all of the requirements, and then he can finally put that on his business card and out there in the world and be an actual trademark registered professional. But that's why I ended up going back to. I probably wouldn't have finished my bachelor's degree. I really wanted to. It was just a point of pride, I think, to like actually get a bachelor's degree, but it's really not necessary. And we can talk about education another time, probably, and my views on paying for that. But the important thing was I didn't go into debt to do it. We cash flowed it. But yeah, so the enrolled agent, so all this alphabet soup after my name, that's the CFP, is getting basic planning certification. It's kind of that minimum hurdle to get over where you're like, okay, this person actually has education on planning, like kind of in depth. And then I got the enrolled agent designation because it's a tax designation. Enrolled agents are usually tax preparers that get extra education. To prepare taxes, you don't have to have anything.
That
seems kind of crazy.
Isn't it wild?
wild.
But
you can go to jail for not doing them right.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
that's
but
wild,
not the preparer.
Yeah,
it's you.
Yeah. That blows my mind.
Like they can mess it up, and it's still on you. And I think our tax system is wild.
That's so backwards.
But I got that really honestly, so that I had a deeper knowledge of personal income tax and business tax. really just so that actual tax preparers
Yeah.
would not think I was some bum.
Right.
Because like I said earlier, financial advisors come in all shapes, and we step over the line. Like financial advisors, we think we're so smart. So we give legal advice, we give tax advice, and like maybe some of it's right, but we're not an expert in all of those fields. Like you know, talking about real estate with me, like I'm like, yeah, I know some. I'm dangerous, but I'm not in real estate all day, every day.
Right.
But I can give a well-rounded advice. So really, I got the enrolled agent designation. One of my friends got it, and I had to tie him. But
It's good to do things out of competition.
a little competitive. Yeah. But I wanted to be able to give more tax advice because, like I said before, the people that I wanted to help, the tax advice was really going to be an important facet. And then I got a certified Kingdom Advisor designation also, which is joining the Kingdom Advisors group. Nobody knows what that is, like when I talk to them. But it really is financial planning. You have to have your certified financial planner designation already so that you've got kind of the technical skills down. And this is like relational. How do you disciple people with that? How do you glorify God, but actually move in the right direction with money, whether your client's already a Christian or not? How do you move that way? So I wanted to help Christians with their money so that they could glorify God, be content, and give a lot of money away.
Yeah.
So that's why I got those 3 designations. That's why I did the school stuff. Yes, there was some competitive parts, and I wanted to be able to puff out my chest and say, oh, well, yeah, I have a bachelor's degree, you know. Mm-hmm.
I love that your
doesn't
heart's
impress you.
I love that your heart's there, and it's been awesome because I've seen more and more of those groups, more and more of those forums pop up where you have a profession, but they're making it foundational on Christ and generosity and giving, or doing it for a purpose bigger than just the profit or the business itself. You're seeing that in real estate. I'm in touch with a friend down in the Columbus area who knows real estate associations that are built around the same principles with kingdom giving and kingdom mindset. And so, but yeah, being able to help somebody financially and coach them to create a budget, I think gives them that freedom and that peace and understanding. It makes more room to be able to give, just like you said. I totally agree. What's the number one? I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is that
Do
okay?
it. Yeah, do it.
So when you're sitting down with, I'm talking like Finance 101, right? They come into your office, they don't have a budget, they're in debt, they're behind on bills. What is it that you find to be the main thing that their issue is or that they're not doing?
So folks that are struggling, it's really it comes down to the same thing. And it's really an issue of contentment. It is almost impossible for me to not have or not look through somebody's financial situation with a biblical lens, because money, how you use your money is really indicative of your spiritual state, what
true.
you actually value, whether you're aware of it or not. It just kind of flows out of you. Ron Blue, who's the Kingdom Advisors guy who started it, but also a very successful CPA and financial advisor himself, he said, show me your tax return and your checkbook, and I'll show you where your heart is.
Yeah.
So it's contentment. It's really folks haven't thought much about what is enough. Whose is this? This is called Courageous Stewards. And the number one money principle to get is that God owns it all. We're stewards. And if you can get that in your head, stuff will start to flow out of it better. Because why are we in debt? Well, usually because we overspent, or we just weren't thinking, or we were wasting.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's just, we tried to count the costs and we planned things and we were trying to be wise and just didn't work out.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's that we're like, I wanted to look cooler than somebody or feel like I looked cooler.
Right. That what leads to that overspending and that burying situation. And then another one that I was finding a lot was like, when I ask them, what do your finances look like? Everybody wants to have their budget up in their head. We're good. I think we're probably right in that. We're right in that black. Right, we're right there. We're not quite in the red yet. But then you get them to write it down. That's always the first thing that I was finding.
Yeah,
they haven't looked at it yet.
Right.
How can you have a plan?
It's an imaginary plan.
Yeah.
It's this is where finances are really similar to like nutrition and fitness.
Yeah, exactly.
My sister's a nutritionist, and I was like, man, these overlap so much because people are like, I'm not eating too much. I'm like, well, let's track everything you eat. And you're like, holy cow, I'm eating enough for 2 of me.
Right? Take it and track it for a day.
And the same as when you finally write down. That's why. So like the first step because it's really behavioral, a lot of it. So, with somebody trying to get into shape, the first thing to do is like, let's not change anything. just track what you're doing.
So
you do that. You do that with finances too. Like I don't want you to do a single thing different. Live your life, but track it.
Yep.
And then you're like, wow, we spent $2,000 at restaurants this month. And I've seen that's an example.
I believe it. I sat with a group of guys. We were doing some talking at the Dream Center the one time, and I was like, what are you spending and where are you spending it? And these guys were lottery tickets, gas station coffees, pops, energy drinks. And I'm like, well, what do you think you're spending? I don't know, $100. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, so it's probably 3.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I don't know about that. I'm like, well, let's track it. Let's write it down. I mean, they're spending a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And then what's cool is when we do get it wrote down, we go, you spent $400 on that stuff. I'm not even going to ask you to stop spending the money on that stuff, but I want you to cut it in half. Give yourself $200 now to go do that with. Mm-hmm. Let's put this in the savings for your kids' college. Let's do something else with this that's more powerful. How would you like to have $1,000 in the next 3 months in a savings account? Mm-hmm. I mean, these are things these guys aren't even they're not thinking about it.
Right. From a business perspective, like you go and transition that I'm going to steal this from Dave Ramsey too, but if you were the CEO of You Incorporated, would you fire you?
Yeah.
Or CFO, I guess. Whatever. You're the person in charge of the money. Like, are you doing a good job? No, you'd get fired probably.
I love that he says that. I do. So I love that he says that because I tell people, if you are thinking about taking the leap into starting a business, you have to treat your home finances the same way, like a business. Mm-hmm. It's a company. Yeah. There's income and there's outpour, So
yeah.
Awesome. So let's jump on to number 2 here, and we'll talk about if you could invest your personal net worth in assets for the next 20 years, and you weren't allowed to change them, what would those be?
This makes me uncomfortable, but it's also really easy because this is a hypothetical and I can always change them.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't allowed to for some reason, like Warren Buffett got asked this and he's, and so he's a buy and hold investor. You guys are buy and hold investors in real estate, I know. And also this is mostly focused on real estate. And I'm not going to say real estate. That's probably why it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Get out. Next guest.
But this is for me. You can't decide for me. Number 1 is my business. I own my own business. So I think this resonates with you and your audience too. I think if you are self-employed or want to be, owning your own business is the best investment. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't do it well, and it becomes just a job, like you own a job. So you got to watch out for that. But if you are building profit, building value in the business, and getting an income off of it, you're doing awesome. And there's all kinds of tax breaks. So that's the easy first one, because that is where almost all of my net worth is right now, is in my own business. And I would just keep doing that because it's also my job. The next 2 are a lot harder, because I would like to say real estate. I'd also like to say farm ground. I grew up on a farm. I love the idea of farm ground. I don't farm though, so buying it and cash flowing it is really, really hard. Impossible, possibly. But I've never met anybody that's bought farm ground and regretted it also, especially 20 years later. I did a big article on this a while ago, is farm ground you inherit a bad investment, and it usually is, just depending on what you're going to do with the money. But farm ground has appreciated since the 70s at the same rate as the stock market. If you equalize for everything, property taxes, cash flows off of it, like dividend payments, it's the same as the stock market, and then you just have the land.
Nice.
And then the ground prices are really high right now. But I'm not going to say farm ground either.
Okay.
Or real estate, because I think what I would do is something a lot easier. And you said specific assets when you were prepping me for this, and I way overthought it. That's what I do. But I think I just do a broad basket market exchange traded fund.
Okay.
Which is what the hyper wealthy who invest would tell you to do.
Yeah, it's so easy. You don't have to do anything. Like my business there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of great things. It's very rewarding. I don't have to do anything with my investments in the market. And I'm not recommending a single one. This is general advice. Yeah, right. Your situation is fact dependent. Please seek advice from a tax accountant, an attorney, and your own financial advisor.
We'll make sure we leave that in.
Yeah, thanks. But that's why I'm not saying a specific one. Just invest in the market. And there's all kinds of really low cost, broad market exchange traded funds that you can buy and hold forever.
You do coach people to buy not single stocks though, more along the lines of mutual funds or index funds or those type of
as a general rule, I think it's really hard to diversify unless you've got over $1 million in investable assets. And even then, it's still kind of hard. So that's why you'd buy and hold a mutual fund. That's why those got so popular. Exchange traded funds are more tax advantaged than a mutual fund. Usually they're easier to manage taxes on. That's what I mean by that. They've gotten so popular now, they're really inexpensive also. So that's why I tend to go towards exchange traded funds. But the principle is the same. You have a basket of individual stocks or bonds, and you're really diversified. So you pay 0.1 or 0.2% in expense ratio in there off of your investment. You never see it, which is also it's dangerous. You should know your expenses.
You should, yeah.
But
agreed.
You also don't really feel it. It comes right out of the performance. And you can have access to 1,000 different companies. You can have access to the entire S&P 500 that just rebounces to whatever the S&P 500 is. Or you can get something a little less top heavy. So that's, I think, a no-brainer. Because the best part is you don't have to do anything. You own a real estate portfolio and you have to do stuff. Yeah. You own a business, you have to do stuff. You own that, you own businesses, but you're a silent partner just getting growth and maybe dividends depending on the kind of investments you're in. So that's an easy one for me to say. It's also what I recommend to most of my clients is something like that. And usually why people come to me because they're like, I don't know how to do this. And I'm like, well, I'll help you do that. Yeah. And then while we're at it, let's look at everything else in your financial life and because that's where you make most of the progress.
Yeah.
And then the third one is just my house. This is, I think, controversial because you own a home, but it's not like an income producing asset. It's an expense. An asset. It's an expense. And that's why a lot of people exclude it from their net worth. But how can you exclude a home from their net worth? I do retirement income planning. My main focus is on tax planning, retirement income, so that we can give more. So a lot of charitable giving tax strategies for my clients. So naturally, those people are usually older. Mm-hmm. Usually those people have owned their house for 20 years or more. The appreciation in their house is gigantic and a huge asset for them. So yeah, I keep it in their net worth. They might not ever leave, but it's a great asset to have. This is probably more behavioral too, but there is something about owning your home. The confidence maybe that comes with having a place that is yours, even though you don't really own it because of property taxes. We'll see. We'll see about property taxes, right?
We hear things may be changing. Who knows?
So the three that I go to are my business, broad basket of market, an ETF or something, and then my home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It does.
So when you look at it from a 20-year perspective, it was making me think about when you said the third one would be your home and how typically we look at a home as a liability rather than an asset. But we're kind of looking at it from the perspective of active. Like as of right now, in our current daily walk through investing, it's probably not an asset. As you're young, it's more of a liability. You're putting a lot of money into it. It's more of an expense. Mm-hmm. But long term, when you're talking about the clients who have owned the property for a long time, probably paid it off, seen it elevate in value far beyond what they've put into it, then it kind of shifts almost from that liability column to an asset column. And so you could kind of look at it from both perspectives, depending on maybe time frame or current stage of life. It could really fall into either category when you look at it.
There are so many variables there because there's a fight, like on the internet, all financial planners fight about renting or owning, especially when you're young and starting out. And it depends on lots of different factors. Are you going to move? Do you want to stay here? Yeah. How much can you handle expense-wise? Like, what's your schedule like? Because it is hard to maintain a house. And expensive, too. Like, I bought a fixer-upper. I was like, we're going to live here because it got me more square footage when I couldn't afford anything. I'm still fixer-uppering it. Yeah. And I've had it for 10 years. I'm like, it's not done. There's trim missing somewhere. But your house is never finished because it wears out when you live in it. So I totally get the argument against it or against owning even. And especially from a real estate investing side, you're like, I own this unit. Yeah. But I'm not making any money off of it.
Yeah, we joke about it all the time. Jake and I typically will go out and we'll fix one of our properties before we'll fix our own house.
Yeah,
I don't have time to be here. I get that one running because that one pays me. But it's totally not. So these forums, people get on there. Everybody likes to treat everything like it's black or white. Yeah, like there's right or wrong. It's like it's not. That's not always the case. There is gray area. There's personal preference. There's what the person values. Yeah, because I've looked back, and we paid our house off quick. Then I got into real estate. Now I look back and I'm like, that was a 3% interest rate.
I know. That's an asset.
Should have not paid that off. But in the time, it was a personal preference. I didn't want any personal debt. Mm-hmm. And I was going to do whatever it took to hit that goal from a personal standpoint. So for us at the time, paying off the debt made sense.
Yeah.
So, but it isn't. Yeah, it's got so much more to do, like you were saying, with so many other factors. It's not right or wrong. It's just, where are you at in your life? What are you doing? What do you value? Because that's where you're going to find joy, is the things that you value.
Yeah, if you line up your money with the things that you value, you'll probably feel better. But the house thing is, like, we were talking with nuance, and nobody likes that. It's not attractive. So own your house, don't rent. Black and white.
That's that's what gets the attention.
Yeah, you're not going to get clicks if you're like, it's very nuanced and it depends. You're like, tune out.
Yeah.
But that's life, man. That's and you can kind of get a framework for making a good decision on that stuff. But the variables are overwhelming, and anytime we get into money, there are so many variables. I often use the diagram that there's only 5 things you can do with money. You can use it to live, you can give it, you can grow it for later giving and living, or you can owe it on taxes or owe it to debt. And that's it. You can do with your money those things, and you can't do the same thing with the same dollar.
Yeah.
So you have to divvy that up. So you need a paradigm to look through to actually design that, or to see what values you have so that you actually move towards it.
It's good.
Dude, that is
So you have to
really
let that
good.
guide you with whether you're buying a house or not, or how much to save for retirement versus how much to put into my business right now. And it's confusing. And when it comes to retirement, it gets even more complicated because you're scared.
Yep.
Because you're like, I've saved all this money, I've been putting money aside, and now I'm not.
Yep. That's good.
That's what you got to look
Great segue into
That is
question 3.
perfect. Go
so
ahead.
you nailed it. Thank you. What's one known piece of investing advice that's actually outdated or dangerous at this point? And what's one good takeaway for the listeners?
at. Yeah. I mean, it is a good question. There are a lot of probably outdated tips. So a good one is tulips. Invest in tulips.
You're going way back.
That's never failed ever.
way back.
Google or AI, whatever.
That's a real thing.
Did I
Yeah,
say?
that's a real
look
story.
at the tulip bubble. There's been a lot of fun bubbles. No, I'm just kidding. That is not a good investment. I don't think. Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know anything about the horticulture.
Could
It's all
change.
industry.
cyclical, right? It just kind of comes
Eventually,
and
tulips
goes.
are coming back. I'm betting on tulips.
Your great-great-grandkids will probably get some value out of them.
I don't know if you can buy and hold tulips. Like, are you going to take delivery on a bunch of tulip bulbs?
Sure, why not?
Okay, not that. So outdated investment advice. There's probably a lot of it. It really depends on what you've been reading, because there's a lot of new really bad investment advice. Most of it is around taxes, and around getting rich quick, like tulips. Like I want a return right now. But a real bad one that I thought of was, I don't know if you've heard this, like, what allocation should you have of stocks versus bonds? Well, just take 100 minus your age, and that's how much you should have in stocks.
That is an old one.
It's bad. It's
not,
really
yeah.
bad. It made more sense when bond yields were better. You used to be able to get a decent return out of bonds.
Yeah.
And then now we're in like bonds are returning more than 3%. Can you believe it? This is amazing. They're maybe more than inflation is now, but when inflation was near zero and interest rates were near zero, having bonds in your portfolio really hurt. And people do that. It's a risk management technique, really. But if you're 70 years old and you have 30% equities, life expectancies are way longer now. You need to be investing for a really long term.
Totally agree.
Usually. Medical science is better. I saw a futurist say we're never going to die now, which I don't believe. But
That's not very biblical.
but at least a little longer than 78 years old, or whatever the average life expectancy is in this country. So I think that 100 minus your age is no good. I really think anybody that you talk to that's been investing for a long time, that's older, and I have the privilege of having some septuagenarian and octogenarian clients. And if I ask them, let's look back at your portfolio and what it's done. How much stock do you wish you had versus bonds over this whole time? They're like, I wish it was 100% stocks. I should have never had any bonds. Why did I have bonds? And I was like, well, that's why. But you think that when you retire, you're going to take all your money and make it super safe and live off of it. Well, not only is that giving up future, it's really irresponsible as a steward. Like you don't hide your money.
Right.
Bury it.
You're going from growth to like hiding it,
and why would you when you're at the most money you've ever had and the most compounding you'll get? Like an 8% compounding return on $2 million is way more than the value or the amount of dollars on 20,000, which you started with. So I think staying more in equities, taking on that risk for a longer period of time is good investment advice, as opposed to that 100 minus your age thing.
That's good. Yeah, I don't know so much about it, but I know just enough that there are a lot of different strategies around retirement planning now that can allow you to go in. I've heard of a bucket system, I guess,
Oh, yeah.
where you have 1, 2, 3. It lets you mitigate your risk because you are putting some things in some other buckets. So when that market dips down for a few years and you're in panic mode, go to your cash bucket.
Yeah.
Go to your bond, go to something else that's a lower risk investment, pull off of that for a minute, ride this out. When this goes back up, you can move a little bit more over to your others. There are strategies around that, and you should be taking advantage of the growth of the market much later in life. I totally agree with everything you were saying about that.
Yeah, retirement income planning is way different. Like while you're working and you think you're never going to stop working, that does change things too, which I'd love to have a conversation about work with you guys because like you guys, I think we have similar views on it. Basically, I don't think retirement is a thing that you should do in the general sense that we have anyway. Like you should work. It doesn't have to be something
dangerous.
You hate.
Yeah, it's almost
You don't have to be on ladders and, hanging, doing dangerous stuff or breaking your back when you're old, but you should still be working.
Yep,
we
agreed.
were made to work. Work is actually good. If you go into the creation account, we were put on this earth to work and it was good. It just got hard because of sin and there's thorns and thistles and stuff, but work is still good and rest is good. But it's you work and then you rest. You work and then you rest. Not that you work for 60 years and then you rest till you die. Like, that's not right. You're still working and resting.
We associate weekends and retirement with checking out.
Yeah.
Completely. Like, it's like, whoa.
And I have sympathy. Like sometimes you're in a season where you have to do something that you wouldn't really want to do. But that's where if your focus is actually on what's important, if your focus is really on living a life that glorifies God because he saved us from our sins, because we're grateful, then you can be content in almost anything, even if it's a really crummy job. But I wanted to go back into the retirement income because you brought up the bucket strategy, which is really you have your short-term, mid-term, long-term money, and you kind of segregate those, which helps you psychologically.
Yes, it makes you feel better.
Yeah, so you're like, I'm safe with this money. There's a paper written by somebody Guyton and somebody Klinger. I only know that because it's called the Guyton-Klinger Guardrails. And it's a similar philosophy to that. So another bad investment advice or maybe a bad philosophy is thinking that if we invest and I get on average 8% returns a year, that when I retire or when I want to take money out, I should be able to take out about that much. And that's, in theory, I guess, without thinking about it too much, makes sense, except that the market doesn't go up linear like that. It doesn't go up 8% every year. If that's an average, that means we had negative 20% one year, and then we had plus 30, and then it really evens out from there. But it's going. And if it goes when you are starting to take money out, it will ruin your whole plan. So you do a guardrails approach, meaning that's the only time that I would usually, not the only time, but that's usually when I recommend having cash equivalents and bonds in your portfolio, so you can take out. So you've got a safety bucket, and then the rest is in equities. I don't have a midterm bucket. I have the next 5 years, and then after 5 years. So there's my free investment advice. But as I said, your case is fact dependent. Please talk to your own professional and tax accountant. This is not tax advice or legal advice.
So a lot of what you're talking about is behavioral, right?
Yeah.
It really comes down to the behavioral patterns that you set in your life will either drive you towards success, give you wisdom and direction, or will help you to crash and burn, for lack of a better term, if your behavioral patterns are poor. So talk to me about the behavioral patterns that you see in the experience of maybe some of the clients that you have that are hyper wealthy or have had their money in the market for a very long time, who have a lot of wisdom in the game. Talk about their behavioral patterns and what you've noticed over time that they do that has made them successful, as opposed to maybe what the young, the unexperienced, the unknowledgeable, maybe they just don't know what they don't know. Talk about behavioral patterns a little bit.
Well, you said successful in there, and that we have to define that.
Sure.
Because everybody has a different definition of success. But I would define being successful as being content, because I have very wealthy clients or people that they don't think they're wealthy, but they are, and they are nervous. They are still worried. And then I have folks that don't have as much and they're not worried at all. So I think a common thread is this principle of contentment, knowing how much is enough. There's a quote, I don't know if it was Carnegie or Rockefeller. Actually, it's probably not any of them. Somebody just made it up. But it was about one of these magnates back in the day. where somebody's like, how much is enough? And he's like, just a little more. And that's how a lot of us feel all the time. I think with these folks, that can, and I touched on it earlier too, when I was talking about working, like you can work a job you don't like necessarily, like you're not passionate about it. Like it's not the thing. I was in rock bands. That's way cooler than being a financial planner.
Oh yeah, it is. We were going to talk to you about that after the episode, but yeah. That's cool.
Like I wish kind of like I was doing that. Like you're creative and free and everybody thinks you're awesome. And now I'm like a nerd and nobody wants to talk about money. But it used to be that people would ask you like, what do you do? And if it was cool, they'd be like, that's awesome. But now it's like, what do you do? How much money do you make? And that's kind of become synonymous with successful, especially in our culture where it's social media and you're showing all the cool stuff that you have.
Yeah.
And everybody's fighting. Like you were keeping up with the Joneses. They used to live next door. Now the Joneses are everywhere in the world. Like, how are you supposed to keep up with you see places and items of luxury on your phone in the morning right after you wake up that most people would have never, ever seen their whole life. Yep. So the comparison is robbing us of joy for sure.
Amen.
And I think with a lot of these people that have built a lot of wealth that I've worked with, there are some common features. Like most of them don't care what other people think, which is awesome. I think that's so cool. Like they're not rude. They're not like, they're very compassionate usually also. They're usually also very generous. Most of these wealthy people are the most generous people that I've met. And I mean as a percentage of their wealth too. So they're generous, they're content, but they are not spending money for other people to see. And that's something that as a young person is really hard to get past, I think, because I remember being a young person and I didn't want to look like I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Because then I think, they think I'm a failure. Like I don't have stuff to. I remember we had our fourth kid and I've been on this crusade against new cars ever since the Dave Ramsey time.
Yep.
Right. That I did. So I'll rip on them. They're a bad investment. Like if you've got the money for a new car and you like it, that's fine. Like I'm not mad. That's okay if it fits. But it is objectively a bad investment. If it's an investment, which people will say, like, I don't want it to break down. We'll get something reliable. But anyway, we're spending way too much on cars.
Agreed.
And we got like a 1999 Silhouette, Oldsmobile Silhouette. The Oldsmobile doesn't even exist anymore, but it's their minivan that they had. And we were driving that for a while. And I remember like driving up to some event at a school where I went. And I was like, people that I know are going to see me getting my kids out of this Silhouette. And for a second, I was like, I wish I had this giant SUV that somebody else had next to me. And then I snapped out of it. And I'm like, they have like a $600 a month payment on that.
I drive my Jetta like a badge of honor. I don't know if you saw it out there.
So like I've done that. I've driven such rusty cars, which is probably bad for my business. People don't.
What did
this
you
guy's
say?
a financial advisor? Maybe we ought to go elsewhere.
I had a sweet old Buick that was my grandparents that I drove for a really long time. It was a great LeSabre, most comfortable car ever. When I drove it to the junkyard. I drove it to the junkyard.
Did you really?
Yeah. I was like, it barely made it. And then I walked home and I was like, well, it's the end of an era. So now I drive a little nicer used car. But most wealthy folks don't necessarily care what other people's opinions are on how they're spending their money. And people have opinions. And you know, if you signal that you have wealth at all, people are going to be judgmental, but almost nobody that is doing really well is that way.
Yeah.
You know, so I think knowing what your purpose is and what your focus is and just working hard towards that is a common trait. Because a lot of my wealthier clients are business owners, but a lot of them aren't. Some of them have just worked for somebody. Like they're an engineer. Like you guys talk about that a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Like you could, and for some people, owning a business they're not cut out for it.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of extra stress. Like I control my schedule. It's great. I can work whenever I want. Well, I'm always on.
Yeah.
I'm always on the clock. Yeah. Like if it's Sunday, I'm going to be worrying about the business. I can't check out on the weekends.
No.
Or do something else. So, but these people have built their wealth by spending less than they make. You have to create margin. So the reason that they're able to do that is because they don't necessarily need to keep up with everyone else.
So true.
So I think that's a really common trait, but I do want to fit in that they're usually generous, and they're not generous because they have a lot of money. They started out that way.
Yeah.
It's a heart condition.
Yeah. And I think you can program it. Ron Blue says giving breaks the power of money, and it's true.
Yeah.
If you're having financial problems, like you're just trying to budget, like if you're helping people that have no money, the first thing I think you should be working with is say, let's give. What's our income? We're going to give. Start with a percent giving. It doesn't have to be 10. I'm not a 10% hardliner, because really, if you take in the principle of the biblical tithe, I think it's way more, like a lot more. So if you're using 10% to say, I'm doing what the Bible says, I don't think you're doing enough.
Yeah.
The great part of that is Paul says that to give out of the overflowing of your heart, not under compulsion.
Yeah.
Just give joyfully. And that the cheerful giving is what our mandate kind of is. So I think if you give, it breaks the power of money because you are forced into seeing that it's not yours.
Yeah.
This is God's money.
That's so good.
And then after that, I don't know. Something just happens. It gets easier with money.
It does.
And you might have less of it, which is really counterintuitive. And so I think that's a big deal. Realize that a lot of wealthy people and there's plenty of misers. There's plenty of Scrooge McDucks out there, that are swimming in their money and they're scared that they're going to lose it all the time. But there's a scarcity versus abundance mindset. So I would say successful, I would have to marry that because I know a lot of wealthy people that are miserable.
Yeah, true.
So the wealthy people that aren't miserable weren't miserable when they didn't have any money either. And they've lived through that.
So they had joy through the entire journey.
That Bible verse that's always taken out of context is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That means like I can win a wrestling match or like we're going to win this golf tournament. I don't know. Like that, it's maybe a secondary or tertiary. Maybe it applies. But what Paul's talking about there is money, having money and having stuff and being comfortable. And he can do all things through Christ who strengthens him because he is trusting in Christ. So he's content when he has a little and he's content when he has a lot.
That's so good.
So that's the core of that. And I think a great trait for wealthy, happy people is that they're content no matter what. And if you're young, I think embrace that struggle because I've had it. We're not hurting anymore financially. We might be again. And I think the great thing is we're able to take some risks like we have because I think we've got a firm foundation. Like your marriage needs to be in the right order too, so that you and your spouse are like on the same page. But I feel like we could handle that kind of like really bad financial hardship again because we've gone through it already, and then it makes us a lot wiser with our money now. And we're just in our 40s, so when I talk to people in their 70s that have done it, they're all agreeing. They're like, I am glad that I got married young and we were dirt poor, and we worked through all that together, and now we have a lot. And it's crazy to think about how much money we have.
Yeah.
When like my wife had to go back to the grocery store and return milk because we went over our budget on our grocery budget, like $5, like we've been there and now we're here. And so I think that the heart condition that's a really common trait.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that. I have a similar story. When I was early on, we lost everything. And I've told this story on the podcast early that we moved out of state. We invested in property. I had another business partner. We failed miserably, lost everything, came back. I lived in a garage. There was no bathroom in the garage. We had an electric heater in the middle of the living room that we rolled out. It was an actual garage bay that somebody was parking a car in. We moved the car out and made it a living room and, started over completely. And I remember, similar to what you were saying, for a very long period of time, as I went back to work, I took a sleeve of saltine crackers and a bottle of water for lunch every day for months because I had no other choice. Mm-hmm. It was what we had. And so you just make it work. But through that, looking back, it's almost like those are memories that you cherish.
Yeah.
You value, you look at them and go, wow, I don't know that I would necessarily have the perspective I have and be exactly where I am if I hadn't gone through the challenges that I had when I started. Yeah. Everybody wants to be here where we are now, or where we see others that maybe you advise that have millions and have done this for a very long time and are very content and are happy in their marriage and have wonderful kids and grandkids and, a life that a lot of us aspire to achieve. Mm-hmm. But it all starts, or a lot of times it starts in those challenges, and you look back at those and see the value in those things that you're like, I hope I never have to go through that. The young generation says, I just want it to all work out. I want it to be easy. I want this life for myself, not realizing that, the challenges you go through on the front end so that you can get to where you hope to be on the back end. But I really love the direction that you took that with contentment. Because in the financial world and the entrepreneurial world, a lot of folks will tell you never be content. Yeah. Keep driving, keep going. And I think there is some value to having ambition and going after your dreams. But you really find, I think, that the people who have found contentment and joy in the simple things, in their faith, in their family, they're not looking for the next million. They're not driving to be so wildly successful that they just in this one area, finances being the topic, that they fail in the other areas of their life. It almost is a balanced approach.
Yeah.
Do you notice that?
Well, I think, and I've been guilty of this, is thinking that contentment is synonymous with doing nothing. Mm-hmm. Like I told you, like I didn't work very hard in school. I didn't work very hard as I could have in a lot of jobs. People are like, you're so smart and talented. Why aren't you doing stuff? And I'm like, oh. And I've used that as like this contentment thing as a mask to justify that. But I think true contentment, now that I'm getting a little wiser, hopefully, is actually motivating. So you're working, you're still grinding, you're still going after things really hard. But the why is different. It's not so that you have stuff.
Yeah.
It's definitely shouldn't be so that you're secure. I just need a little bit more so I don't worry.
Yeah.
Which drives a lot of people. Like I just need more. Because something bad could happen and I'll lose everything. The reality is, that totally can happen.
Yeah.
The Bible's awesome because of the Proverbs. Really good, wise advice. You read through Proverbs and you're like, this Solomon kind of was smart.
Yeah.
This is good. And those are general principles for working and getting a result. And then you read Ecclesiastes and it's like, and if you do this, everything will go wrong. So you got like, do this and it'll work, but it also might not.
Yeah.
And it's great because that's what life is. And if you actually understand, if you're more content, if you're actually, trusting that what you're managing is not yours, I think that you end up working harder because your motivation is not to satisfy your risk-averse self where you're just really nervous that you're not going to have stuff. And it's definitely not for your vanity anymore. It's not so that you look cool or so that people respect you. If it's not for power and influence and control, which is really just more of that insecurity, like I want power, it's because you can't be out of control. You have to realize that you're actually not in control.
Yeah.
And the reason that you are free to work is to bring glory to God and not yourself. I think you work harder. And because like I said earlier, work is good. It's really good. So we should want to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's contentment is hard because I brought it up like, oh, just be content. Why are you doing this? Because even when you are working for good, you're still thinking,
right.
You're still battling all those natural sinful things that come into your head. Yeah. So you're like, I'll just not try to be successful. I'll just not try to work hard because stupid me keeps making it about me. But you're going to have to fight that your whole life.
You got to know what your why is. So it's always asking people that want to get into something. It's like, why are you doing this? Let's start there. Because you're so right. It'll push you. And we talk a lot about contentment. For me, it was maintaining an attitude of gratitude in all circumstances. So when you're broke, be grateful.
It's hard.
I have all I need. When you have money, be grateful. You have all you need. Everything else is abundance after that. Because when you get something else that you were working for and you have it all of a sudden, it's not finally about time. I should have had this last year.
Yeah.
It's, wow, God, you just moved again. And we didn't even need this either, but thank you. If you can have that gratitude, you're right. It allows you to have contentment, but also ambition and drive to do more because God's working, you're working with him to grow something for his kingdom. So you can be content and still be ambitious, and they're not, you don't lose either one.
Yeah.
So good. I think we need to transition. We could talk about this kind of stuff all day long for hours and hours, and we would never, I don't think, run out of conversation to have. But in an effort to kind of wrap the podcast up a little bit, I want to know, Jason, what is your superpower? We've explained this a couple of times on the podcast prior to today, but basically what we look for is that thing that most people would perceive as a challenge or a difficulty, and you can take it and make it your greatest asset. What is that for you?
I forget.
You forget?
No, that's my superpower.
That's your
you
superpower.
forget?
You
Yeah.
just forget.
I
You know
forget.
what? I love that.
What I was going to say originally, I think, to this is that I at least believe that I can scale my abilities up to a slightly above average really fast in almost anything. And, you know, maybe that's not true in everything. Like I tried golf for a little while and I wasn't immediately good at it. So I was like, this is stupid. Golf is dumb.
It's harder than people think.
Golf is really tough. But I think I was like, well, if I golfed every day, I'd probably get pretty good pretty fast. Like not like a pro, but above average. And I think that's something I'm gifted at. But I say I forget because it has been a weakness for me. But I've seen how it's become very helpful to me in my career. I really love pleasing people. I don't like it when people don't like me. But thankfully, I forget. I forget when I've done something really dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't forget, and like I don't not change myself because I've made mistakes with clients, with calculations or projections or, you know, timings occasionally. It happens. I'm human and I try to not, but when I make a mistake, I learn from it. But those feelings of people get overwhelmed by that.
Yeah.
By disappointing someone or by making a bad decision. And it can be debilitating for making a new decision or for trying something else. This has been especially true for me in relationships with people because I've been hurt. I've had really, really close relationships or that I thought were really close and then they weren't. And I'm sure I've done the same thing. I know I have done the same thing to other people. And that kind of makes you want to close off from having relationships, right? It can be the same in business. It can be the same with your own personal development, career development. You can be really wrong about something. And I am, and I think everybody is. But I forget, like, pretty quick. Like, I'm a goldfish with some of that stuff. And so I think that's actually been really beneficial to me because I'm just ready to get hurt again.
Yeah. There's so much value in that.
So funny, yeah.
It's funny that you say that. It's something that you wouldn't normally think of, but it is so true that how much of a superpower something so simplistic can be.
Yeah.
It's a dumb thing. And it's not a great thing all the time. That's for sure. I see it in like my kids that are too much like me. Like my daughter one of her chores is doing the dishes, load the dishwasher, get everything ready. She won't start it. She just closes it and then leaves.
Yep. It's like
why won't you start the dishwasher? And I'm like, oh, that's exactly me. She's got a bad habit, has forgotten. But I think my grandpa is going to be 99 in about a month, and he's still around, and he forgets more than he used to. But I think I got it from him, and I'm like, that's just kind of nice. Like you forget.
Short-term memory is good
for that kind of thing. Like you keep a short account of things, and it helps me to forgive people a lot more because I read a Tim Keller quote on forgiveness is forgiveness means not bringing it up anymore. If you've actually forgiven someone, you're like, ooh, ow, that's hard. But I was like, I forgot. Like I don't remember what to bring up. I have to like dig through stuff. I was going through some old business notes for an unrelated reason, and I saw some things that like triggered me. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't remember that. I forgot that happened. That was traumatic.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a blessing that I'm not dwelling on that all the time, because I know some people that have really good memories which helps them in a lot of ways probably, but they just keep recycling the same thing over and over again. So I thought that was a weird and interesting one to put up.
Yeah.
Decide what you're attaching to and what you're letting go of for sure.
I don't know if I have
you can't attach anything. Can you,
I don't
Jason?
know if I have control over it. I have to write things like to not forget. I have to have systems in place. I've had to do that big time.
Oh yeah. We talk about that.
And so like when it's a business related thing and other people are counting on me, like I have to document and I have to like automate stuff or it'll just escape my mind, which is nice because that's where most anxiety comes from for most people. Like I had a friend who's in the same business and he is probably more competent than me, I'd say, because he has ulcers, worrying that he's forgetting something all the time.
Oh my.
But so having some anxiety is good because it keeps you from making really big mistakes sometimes. Sometimes it's good to worry. Like, I'm up really high. Yeah, you might fall and die. So you should be a little bit worried. Be careful. But yeah, that's my superpower.
That's awesome.
I forget.
I think that's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting one for sure. This was an awesome episode. And having you on, I mean, there's a lot of good information that was shared today. So how can folks connect with you?
Jason@demlandwealth.com is my email. You just email me. You can go to my website. It's demlandwealth.com. My contact form is broken. So I'm working on getting that fixed. So don't send anything through my contact form on our website. Email me. My email address is there on the website too.
Well, cool, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This is one that I've looked forward to for a long time. We talked about this before we even started the podcast, and it just hasn't developed. Sean and I needed to get some things in order before we were able to start having guests on, but we're honored and thrilled that you were able to be one of our very first guests. I think you have an incredible amount of knowledge and wisdom and insight that you can give both us and our guests. So we hope that our guests got something out of this. Go find us on all of our platforms. We are on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We'd love for you to subscribe, interact with us, and we look forward to bringing you more content that you hopefully will enjoy and get value out of. We love you guys. We'll see you later.